Hello and welcome back to more Films Under Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some star Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host Maverick Drenzaria. This week we're taking a look at the film Conan the Barbarian.
Fuck computers. Anyway.
Yeah, this is our second time trying this. My computer crashed and lost the recording, so...
Yeah. Hey man, Charlie don't surf. Yeah, Conan the Barbarian, which... With this movie, we have now done at least one film from every year of the 1980s on this podcast.
I feel like that's a pretty impressive feat.
I think that's the first decade where this has happened, because we've only done a few movies from the 70s.
I think our next goal should be the 90s.
90s. Yeah, because I think we were almost done on the 90s, actually. Let me look.
We've done a lot of 90s movies
I
recently.
think the only year, we're missing a few years. We're missing 1991, 1993, 1994, and 1998.
Okay.
And we haven't done anything past 2020.
Yeah, I guess that's... Yeah.
Have we even done anything from the year 2020? I don't know. Yeah.
When did Rise of Skywalker come out? I think that was 19.
I think that's the latest movie we've done.
Yeah.
Oh, that's biased, but anyway, fuck it. Gotta do this intro all over again. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. And also, our timing on this recording is impeccable, because today is Arnold Schwarzenegger's 75th birthday.
Yep. Which, that's the first time I think we've recorded anything on someone's birthday who's involved with the movie we're watching.
I think, again, I'd have to look. It almost happened with George Lucas, but we had to reschedule.
We probably got close to Christopher Reeves just because we had to record that episode so many times.
And this was released on March 16th, 1982 in Spain. And May 14th, 1982 in North America.
So I found out why it released in Spain first.
Okay, enlighten me.
Because the movie was filmed around Madrid and Almeria. So it was filmed primarily in Spain.
That makes sense. Maybe there might even be Spanish, extras in it, now that I think about it.
Oh, there probably are.
Yeah. Wait, Spanish people live in Spain?
Impossible.
I find that unlikely. It cost $20 million and made about $70 million, give or take. So, pretty good box office right there.
Yeah.
And it was directed by John Milius, who has a very interesting filmography, very interesting career. He's done quite a few controversial movies. Red Dawn, he directed Red Dawn. He was mostly a screenwriter. That's what I should point out. He was also friends of, George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola, He was, running around in those circles, too, so... There's a documentary about him that was interesting called Milius.
Something actually interesting about him directing Red Dawn, he was actually a story consultant on a video game called Homefront in 2011, which has a very similar, basic plot to at least the remake of Red Dawn, which was about North Korean invasion of the United States.
I've never seen the remake, actually. To be honest, I've only seen the original one. Now, Homefront, does that have anything to do with the Jason Statham movie by any means?
It does not look like it.
Which Sylvester Stallone wrote I think he wrote the story on that one, if I remember right. But anyway, The Wind and the Lion, he did that movie with Sean Connery.
Hold on a second. I'm reading about Homefront, that video game.
Okay.
Listen to this part of the plot summary. In 2022, conditions in the United States worsened with the collapse of the financial system and an Asian bird flu epidemic that claimed 6 million lives. That's a little eerie.
2022. Wait. Did you say you said 2022?
Yeah, they're only 2 years off.
That is, yeah. Once we're done with 2022, we'll see how accurate Soylent Green was. Yeah, he directed The Wind and the Lion, which had Sean Connery in it, playing a Moroccan with his Scottish accent, because again, Sean Connery, he never changes his accent in any movie.
Has Sean Connery ever even attempted to do any kind of accent?
He doesn't, and You Only Live Twice. He's supposed to be disguising himself as a Japanese guy, and
I remember that.
He's still talking with his Scottish accent. And what's funny, Highlander, that's like one of the few movies Sean Connery is in that takes place in Scotland, and he's not even playing a Scottish character.
That's pretty good.
He's an Egyptian and then a Spanish, but anyway. Oh man. And then Wind and the Lion also had Theodore Roosevelt as a main character in the movie, which is pretty awesome. How many movies are there where Theodore Roosevelt is a main character?
All of the Night at the Museum movies.
That's the wax dummy of Theodore Roosevelt. And really, that's more just Robin Williams being Robin Williams.
Yeah, that is fair.
But what's also interesting, he wrote the USS Indianapolis speech that Quint gives in Jaws.
Huh.
Which is a very, very creepy scene. Probably the creepiest scene in the movie, and it's one of the few that doesn't even have the shark in it, so that's impressive.
That was also the scene that got parodied in Master of Disguise.
Oh, fuck that movie. Fuck it. Fuck that movie. I know you fucking hate that movie, but man.
Oh, it's such a bad movie.
It's one of the worst fucking, I swear.
On our next episode, we talk about Master of Disguise.
No, we're doing Masters of the Universe. We're not doing Master. He also wrote, I almost want to just end the podcast now that you mentioned that, but I'll continue.
Who knows? Maybe my computer will crash again and end it for me.
Oh, fuck. And he was also one of the writers of Apocalypse Now. Which among his contributions were the two most iconic lines from the movie. Those being, "Charlie, don't surf." And of course, the napalm monologue,
Yeah.
"I love the smell of napalm in the morning."
Napalm in the morning.
Which I feel like there's a lot of people that have heard that quote and don't even realize where it's from.
Yeah, I definitely knew of that quote before I had seen Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, same. I've still not seen the final cut. I've only seen the theatrical and the redo cut of that, but anyway. And he did drafts of the first two Dirty Harry movies, including writing Clint Eastwood's two most famous catchphrases. "Go ahead, make my day."
My day.
And you got to ask yourself one question: do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Punk.
Yeah, I love the Dirty Harry movies. And Milius also did a rewrite of The Hunt for October, another Sean Connery movie.
Yeah.
And Saving Private Ryan, which, if I remember right, his contributions to that were the bookend segments with the older Ryan at the cemetery.
Okay.
But yeah, and he also did a TV miniseries called Rough Riders, which starred Tom Berenger as Theodore Roosevelt. If you can't tell, he really likes Theodore Roosevelt.
Apparently.
which makes sense when you learn more about it, because he he two things you have to know about him. He really likes war and he really likes guns. So
Yeah.
yeah. He has the distinction of being called both a fascist and an anarchist, which I don't know how that works, but okay. And he's also the inspiration for John Goodman's character Walter from The Big Lebowski, which
I did look up a picture of him, and
they look
wow,
exactly
it's
alike, yeah.
it's uncanny, the resemblance.
Hell, we could probably just do a podcast on John Milius. But anyway, and he also wrote the screenplay, co-writing it with Oliver Stone,
who's another very interesting writer.
He has a very interesting and controversial career. He's mostly known as a director because he directed Platoon, Wall Street, Born on the 4th of July, JFK, a lot of very politically charged movies, a lot of very good movies, but probably not movies we'll do on this podcast just because I don't feel like stoking controversy. He also wrote Scarface and Midnight Express.
He's done a lot of president movies.
Yeah,
JFK, Nixon, W.
Yeah, W. W is a terrible movie, but yeah, he has done a lot of stuff about presidents, which, I mean, I don't blame him. The presidents are interesting, you know?
Yeah.
And Dino De Laurentiis was very involved in this. He helped produce the movie and distribute it, which that makes this his third movie on this podcast, because the other two were Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, if I remember right. You still there?
Yeah. We made it. We made it past the point we did last time.
Okay. The music. Now, the music was done by Basil Polidoris, who...
Very Greek-sounding name.
Yeah, and very Greek-sounding music score.
Oh, wow. I just opened up his filmography, that he's done music for.
RoboCop was another one.
Yeah, Free Willy, Red October, Starship Troopers.
He's done a lot of movies. And his score in this movie, I actually think the score is one of the best things about this movie. It is an awesome
Oh, yeah,
score.
it's a really good score.
Like, that opening, like, if you aren't roused by the opening titles, then where is your fucking pulse, man? I mean, and the cast, we of course have Conan O'Brien playing... No, I'm kidding.
I'd watch that version with Conan O'Brien playing Conan.
Oh, is there? I just had that as a joke. I didn't really...
I would love... I would be surprised if he hasn't done something like that before.
Did he play Conan the Librarian or something?
Wasn't that a sketch in UHF?
That was in UHF, yeah. One of the similar names, but no, he's not in the movie. Instead, we have Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And I believe this is his first appearance on the podcast.
No, Batman and Robin.
It wasn't? I forgot about that movie.
But to be fair, he's the best part of that movie.
True. I completely forgot that movie existed, and now I'm sad again.
How do you forget that movie exists?
I don't know. I try not to think about that one. Or Batman Forever.
Okay, I don't have to bring that one up now. You love it. But yeah, but this was not Arnold's film debut, but this is his first, this is the first movie where he became a star, basically. This is the first movie that got him, well, unless you count Pumping Iron. But that's a documentary. You know. And he was, the heavyweight champion, but yeah, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Every time there's a pause, I'm like, oh my god. But yeah, this is his first, huge... This is his first role in, a really huge... the first starring role in, a huge budget movie.
He also wasn't dubbed over in this one.
Yeah, Hercules in New York, this ain't. In a good way, 'cause Hercules in New York is terrible. Although that scene where he wrestles the bear in, like, Central Park, that wouldn't be too out of place in a Conan movie.
Yeah. It feels like it would have belonged in, like, the beginning of this movie.
Have you seen Hercules in New York, or
I have not.
you've probably just seen, like, clips of it, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think I've only seen the version of it where he's dubbed, and it is a strange experience.
It's so bizarre.
It's so wrong. It doesn't feel right. Although, granted, he barely talks in this movie. So.
Yeah. There's actually a video that compares, like, the footage with Arnold's voice and with the dub.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's like a small clip. I'm tired of the same old places, the same old things. You can, like, barely tell what Arnold is saying.
Yeah.
And I guess his English at that point wasn't, you know. And we also got a returning cast member, James Earl Jones.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was not expecting
You didn't
to see
know
him
James
here.
Earl Jones was in this? Oh, damn.
I did not.
And you actually get to see him, too, because he's, like...
Yeah.
He's got, like, really long hair, too.
He plays the main villain, Thulsa Doom.
That might be the coolest character name ever, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Sandal Bergman, which... I don't really know what else she was in. I think the reason she was cast in this, though, was because of her appearance in All That Jazz. Because they were impressed with her dancing skills, so I guess... Yeah. Ben Davidson,
Just looking at it.
Who's a football player. Either is or was. He might have, for all I know, he's dead. I'm not sure.
Let's see. Yes, he died in 2012. That guy was tall, 6'8".
Damn, that's taller than Arnold. Mako, he's in this.
Oh yeah, he plays the wizard.
He's the narrator, yep. It is I, his chronicler.
Oh, okay. I remember this guy. So this guy was the voice of Uncle Iroh in the first 2 seasons of Avatar.
Yep, he's in a lot of movies. His filmography is massive. Wow.
Yeah.
I know he's in at least 2 Chuck Norris movies.
Well, that's impressive.
An Eye for an Eye and Sidekicks. He plays basically the same character in both of them, too. It's like the Mr. Miyagi type character. Oh, and Max von Sydow. He's in this. And this is also not the first time he's been on this podcast, because he was in The Force Awakens.
Oh, that's right.
And you look at his filmography, it's fucking massive.
Ooh, it's one of those with its own Wikipedia page.
He's been in everything my lord. From, like, Ingmar Bergman movies like The Seventh Seal and Virgin Spring to, like, The Exorcist and...
See, his most recent movie was Echoes of the Past, which is a Greek historical drama film.
He was prolific enough that he played both Jesus and the devil.
Oh, wow.
2 different movies.
He also played Zeus at one point.
Zeus. He played Emperor Ming in Flash Gordon.
He played Pope Clement VII.
But anyway, that would take a whole other podcast to do his filmography. We'll do Eric Roberts, and then we'll do Max von Sydow. Okay, but I think we can get to our initial thoughts on this movie. Now, this was not my first time seeing it. I'd seen this before.
Yeah, so this was my very first time.
Becoming a recurring theme on this podcast. I'm like, let's do a podcast on this movie. I haven't seen that. For fuck's sake. But watching this, I can definitely see why this movie made Arnold Schwarzenegger such a huge star. Because he definitely has that star quality in this movie, even if he doesn't, like, talk that much, but
Yeah.
You watch this movie, but he's perfectly cast. I mean, who else at that time could have played Conan the Barbarian?
His like physique fits the character perfectly, I feel.
Yeah,
Like he looks like he belongs on one of the cover of those pulp novels, like those pulp fantasy novels.
exactly. Yeah, which is that's what this movie's based on, is like pulp
Yeah.
fantasy story. I haven't read any of the source material, so I can't really compare. Although one thing I have heard is they kind of did a similar thing with this to what they did with Tarzan, which is where he's a lot smarter in the original text than in any of the movie adaptations.
Ah, okay.
Because if you watch a lot of Tarzan movies, he doesn't really talk that much.
Yeah.
He like same with Conan, but like apparently in the original novels, Tarzan like he can speak in full sentences. That's interesting.
Huh. So I will say, just from my initial thoughts about the movie,
Yeah.
I think that the beginning is fantastic, the ending is fantastic, but the middle is a bit of a drag.
There are some scenes in the middle, yeah, that kind of dragged. I think it's an entertaining movie,
Yeah.
but it is a bit too long. Like I said, I think there's some scenes that kind of drag. But I think the film looks great.
It does. It's shot very well.
I think the action scenes are really good. I really like the performances in this. Like I think everybody's pretty well cast. It is more than a little silly, looking back. But as far as fantasy movies and sword and sorcery movies go, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, you compare this to a lot of the stuff that ripped it off. I mean, just...
And it's leagues better.
So, yeah, we can get into the recap. Okay, so we start off with a Nietzsche quote. Wait a minute, is Conan the Ubermensch?
That is a very strange thing to open up on, in my opinion. Just like, hey, here's Nietzsche. Moving on.
That which doesn't kill me simply makes me stronger, I think was the quote.
Yeah, that which does not kill us makes us stronger.
Which I guess is just because Conan's so strong.
Yeah, it fits kind of the beginning, but then at the same time, it's like, we probably didn't need this at the beginning.
That's kind of what they were doing with the movie, is they were trying to... Like, one thing I read is John Milius wanted to do a trilogy of movies, and they were going to be focused on, like, different themes, and this movie's theme was strength. So I guess the quote was, maybe the other ones would have opened up with, like, other philosophers. Like, Jean-Paul Sartre, what was he say? Hell is other people. And then the next one would be like Camus or something. Like, what? I'm trying to remember what. I imagine Sisyphus must have been very happy. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was about to say Kafka, but he's not really a philosopher, just a really depressing writer.
No, he's not, yeah. I actually have read The Metamorphosis, believe it or not. It's a weird fucking book.
Yeah.
I kind of like it, though. But anyway, that's getting off topic. And then we have narration done by Mako.
Yeah, he basically just gives an overview of the world, and so it takes place in this weird time period, like just after Atlantis fell.
Yeah,
apparently.
Atlantis, yeah.
Also, I feel like that's a pretty big thing just to drop on the audience, like, hey, Atlantis was here, but now it's gone.
I would love to see a Conan movie where he tries to go to Atlantis. He's basically like saying, I am his chronicler, I'm going to tell you the tales of high adventure. And then the opening credits and the music start, and already you're hooked, because the music is fucking awesome. I mean, something I've noticed, though, is the main theme to this and Total Recall are very similar.
Yeah.
Like, if you listen to them, they use some very similar music cues. And also the opening credits at the same time is showing the sword being made, it's like, what better way do you start off your movie? I mean, damn, you know, the music, the sword. I mean, it's great. You know,
It very much gets you in the mood for the rest of the movie.
it does. Yeah, like, and even after watching this movie, I remember like the days after watching it, I kept listening to that theme song. It's just like, 'cause, come on, And then we see Conan as a kid.
Speaking with his blacksmith father, who tells him the riddle of steel. What it basically says is just like, you can trust your weapon.
Yeah.
More than you can like another person.
Which is different from what Tulsa Doom says later, because he also tells him that. But anyway, we'll get to that. And this beginning stuff was honestly reminding me of Game of Thrones. With like the snow and the village and being raided and stuff. It felt very much like something to be in Game of Thrones. And the violence is Game of Thrones level.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And Conan's dad, he gets mauled by dogs. And who shows up but Tulsa Doom?
Tulsa Doom.
James Earl Jones.
So, after raiding their village, Doom essentially kills everyone in the village except for the children, who he takes back to a base camp to push a mill.
You skipped over something. He kills Conan's mother, and the way he kills her is interesting, because he pretends he's like gonna turn around, only to just swing the sword around, cut her head off. It's a very like
kind of a gruesome beginning.
He just saw both of his parents killed right before his eyes. I mean, damn.
Yeah.
And after this opening, he's gonna seek revenge. I mean,
yeah.
Most people probably would after this if they could. And yeah, the kids, they all get enslaved and they have to push a wheel. It's this big giant wheel.
And we basically are then given a montage of Conan growing older and being the only one left pushing this wheel, which has made him absolutely gigantic.
Yeah, he grows up to become Arnold Schwarzenegger, which... Yeah, he's fucked already. Yeah, to go against Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it was also around here where I was noticing that this movie's going to be hard to recap, because there's very little dialogue for a good portion. Like, it honestly felt kind of like a novel come to life.
It does kind of feel like that. Like, it should be something you're reading instead of watching.
Most of it is like action and narration, but I think it works for the most part because it's trying to give it this big epic feel to it, And Arnold, he gets bought out of slavery and put in a fight.
And he ends up being trained as a warrior from that point on.
Which during this fight, he was letting out some funny yells,
Yeah.
I think this would have been the first time anybody heard Arnold giving his iconic yells.
Oh, that's amazing.
I think it was, at least. I can't really think of any movie before this where he would have.
So he and his master end up going to the Far East, where he meets with the Mongol horde, apparently, that's just chilling out there.
Does he meet... Wait, is Genghis Khan in this movie?
I don't think he is, but they're Mongols for sure.
It's too bad John Wayne died. Otherwise, we could have gotten him to reprise his role as Genghis Khan from The Conqueror.
Oh, so I just looked up something. So the general in this scene who asks Conan what is best in life, he also played the Chinese pilot in the Temple of Doom.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh. The guy that leaves him to die up in the air.
Yeah.
What an asshole. And Arnold, he learns how to read. and how to fuck, important
Yeah.
life skills here. And then we get very iconic scene right here.
Yeah, one of the best lines.
What is best in life? Other guys
to
are
which
giving
Conan-
answers, and he says wrong, and then he says, Conan, what is best in life?
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women.
First of many iconic quotes in this movie. And then Conan, he's freed. And he basically runs away, and you get more of Arnold's yells.
As he's being chased by a bunch of dogs.
Yeah, he falls into a cave. And he hides out in the cave for a bit, finds some skeletons and a sword, takes the sword. Again, it's scenes like that are going to make this hard to...
Yeah, because it's a lot of events, not a whole lot of dialogue, not a whole lot of stuff to really discuss, I feel.
It's more just, this happens, this, just like...
Yeah.
I think it flows.
It flows well when you watch it. It's just hard to kind of talk about.
Although there are some scenes towards the middle that I think are going a little bit too long.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, but we'll get to that. And he goes to this scene.
Yeah, no, this scene feels like it came out of nowhere. I was so confused.
It's a pretty great scene, though.
It is.
He goes to a hut, and there's this woman there, and she I think offers to I think she just offers to keep him warm in the hut, because she has a fireplace. And then they start fucking, which that happens quite a few times in this movie.
Yeah.
You get several sex scenes in this movie. It's definitely not.
And then
this might be the most rated R movie we've done on this podcast so far, because violence, but anyway. And then while he's having sex with her, she turns into a witch.
Yeah. Which Conan then throws into a fire, causing her to explode.
I love how he just, throws her over into the fireplace. He rolls over and throws her. Oh, it's so funny.
I watched this scene, I was like, what the hell is going on?
I remember you sent me a text saying, speaking of strange, Conan is a strange movie, and there were 2 scenes I thought of. When you sent that message. This was one of them. There's another one later in the movie, which we'll get to.
But I think it's after I saw this scene is when I sent that message.
I'm not surprised. It was there were 2 scenes I thought of, and this was one of them. Yeah, you watch that scene, and you're like, yeah, because it comes out of nowhere, too.
And it really doesn't lead to much. She basically just tells him where he's going to find the symbol of 2 snakes, and then that's it.
It doesn't really, yeah. Again, another thing about the source material is apparently they were short stories published in pulp magazines originally, so that might be kind of why this has this episodic structure to it.
Yeah,
a bit. But anyway, so yeah, Conan, he finds this starving guy. Which, if I remember right, I think he was friends with John Milius. I think they went surfing together or something. Yeah, that was something I found out, I think. When I watched a making of documentary about it. And we get an interesting scene where they're talking about what gods they worship.
Yeah, so
my god can beat your god.
Basically.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting bit of world building to hear, because you hear Conan talking about Crom, and basically how he has to answer the riddle of steel and then he'll make it into Valhalla.
Yeah, I found it very interesting that they mentioned Valhalla, because that's in Norse mythology.
Yeah. And then the thief basically talks about praying to the 4 winds.
Provides a little bit of levity too, because another thing I kind of was forgetting about this movie, it's a depressing movie.
It kind of is at points.
The opening especially, because both of his parents get killed very brutally too, And this is also where we're starting to learn about the snake cult.
Yeah, the cult of Set.
Why did it have to be snakes? Indiana Jones would be saying that by this point.
Yeah.
And then we get a kind of a brief scene, but I thought it was funny. Arnold punches a camel,
Oh, yeah.
which reminded me of Mongo punching a horse in Blazing Saddles. Again, it was a short thing, but I don't know. I think it's kind of funny.
Now, the scene coming up here reminded me of something, so we'll talk about it and then I'll say what it was.
And
so
this is also where he meets Sandal Bergman as Valeria.
Yep. So what basically happens is they're talking to like a merchant or something, and he just complains about the snake cult that showed up to town with a giant tower.
Yeah.
And so Conan and Subotai end up deciding they're going to sneak in and destroy it, basically. And that's where they then meet. Why can I forget the character's
Valeria.
name? Valeria.
That's what I mentioned. Yeah, Sandal Bergman is
Yeah.
Valeria.
And so it was at this point where I started thinking that it felt like somebody's Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Huh. Kind of, yeah, because all the characters are like meeting each other in this one spot. Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, and there's like some townsperson's like, oh, there's this cult over here. If only someone could go deal with them, sort of thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's already done this, but this would make a good video game, actually.
It would. And I know there are video games. I don't know if they're any good, though.
Probably not as good as this movie. They don't have Arnold Schwarzenegger in them, probably. And so they enter the snake building, and I gotta say, the set design in this movie is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, the design
really
of, like,
is.
all the snake buildings and stuff, it looks great. And we get a pretty entertaining scene where Arnold gets in a fight with a giant snake.
I was impressed at the actual effects in that scene.
Yeah, the effects aren't bad for the time, yeah.
Although, I don't know why, but when they were showing the snake at first when it was on the ground, for whatever reason, it didn't seem that big then.
It gets bigger.
But then
but
then when Conan's escaping, it's like 50 feet long.
Yeah, it's a huge snake, yeah. And for all we know, it's Jafar turning himself into a snake, but yeah. I'm gonna show you how snake-like I can be. And he kills the snake. God damn it, Arnold, you're supposed to listen to Jim Morrison and ride the snake to the ancient lake. That does sound like something that'd be out of this movie, actually.
Yeah.
Ride the snake to the ancient lake. This movie needs more songs by the Doors in it.
That would be a very different movie.
That's the case with most movies, actually. More movies need songs by the Doors. Apocalypse Now does. In fact, it has the one that I just referenced.
I feel like the sequel trilogy could have used a couple.
Sequel trilogy. I forgot to do that because, like, when I was rewatching Rise of Skywalker, I was playing songs over it. I was playing the Beatles and Queen, but I didn't do the Doors. I should have. This is the end. My only friend to the end. Forrest Gump has a lot of songs by the Doors, but anyway, that's getting off topic. We get another sex scene.
Of course, what else are we gonna get?
He kills a snake, and then he fucks Valeria.
And then the king's men show up. And at first the group thinks they're in trouble, but it turns out the king just wants them to go save his daughter from the snake cult.
Max von Sydow shows up, and this is his only scene in the movie.
Yep.
But he makes the most of it.
He really does.
He is like... He's hamming it up a bit, but, I mean, it works.
Yeah, it fits. He feels like a believable character in the setting.
And also, it's just nice seeing Max von Sydow in a movie like this.
Yeah. I will say this part also felt a lot like a Dungeons and Dragons game. Because it's like, oh, you killed the snake cult here in town. How about you go out and kill more of the snake cult? Go save my daughter.
That's kind of what John Milius's movies are like. It's just like, how do we solve our problems? Let's kill a bunch of people. But, and this is around the point of the movie where it started to slow down a bit.
Yeah. Because I hit this point and I was like, there's a lot of good energy here. And then...
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition.
Yeah.
And a lot of long scenes of, like, no dialogue, too. And yeah, it kind of slowed the movie down. It was also making me realize, while I was watching the movie, I was like, this is a long movie. I forgot how long this movie is.
It is. I was surprised when I opened it up on Tubi TV and saw that it was a 2-hour movie. I was expecting an hour and 20 minutes.
The next one isn't that either. The next one is an hour and 41 minutes. Red Sonja, on the other hand, is like an hour and 28 minutes. So if you want to do that one, it's a lot shorter. It's also a lot worse. So, we get a scene where Valeria, she like has this really emotional scene and says she's been alone her whole life, which I will say performances in this movie are good.
Yeah. Everyone feels believable. At no point does anyone really act in a way that makes me go, huh, this is weird.
And also it helps that the dialogue in this is better than in, say, Willow.
Yes. Yes, 100%.
While watching this, I couldn't help but compare some of it to Willow, just because that's one of the only other fantasy movies we've done on this podcast.
I think that is the only other fantasy movie we've done,
Army
right?
of Darkness.
Ah, okay, fair.
And I think this movie's obviously a lot better than Willow.
Yeah.
And then Arnold meets Mako.
The wizard and narrator.
Yeah, what would be... I was hoping Arnold would break the fourth wall and ask him if he was the one who's been narrating his entire life. He'd be like, I was wondering who that voice was. And he is a wizard. I don't remember his character's... Well, what's his character's name in this?
I think it's Akiro.
Akiro, that sounds like a character name from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, it kind of does.
That show is missing an Arnold cameo. And Arnold knocks out a priest and disguises himself in another scene which kind of reminded me of Blazing Saddles.
That was a really funny scene. Because basically what happens is he is basically disguising himself as a father, goes up to a priest, and he's like, I'm scared, can we talk about it? They go off to the side, and he just knocks him out and steals his clothes. Actually, I know the exact Blazing Saddles scene you're probably thinking of.
Hey, where are the white women at?
Where the white women at?
It's like one of the funniest parts of that movie. They disguise themselves as members of the KKK, yeah. They look like they're dressed as the KKK in that scene. I mean, because they got like the hooded robes, they're pointy.
Yeah.
And he gets his he gets his cover blown because James Earl Jones shows up again.
Yep.
He should have said, for my next impression, Jesse Owens, and then ran away. It's like Sheriff Bart in Blazing Saddles. But nope, he gets captured.
And Doom basically gives another speech where he's saying that flesh is stronger than steel.
Oh, you missed This was after, but there was another part I want to mention. He chastises Arnold for breaking into his house and murdering his pets.
Oh, yeah. And stealing his stuff.
You get another iconic line where Arnold says,
You killed my mother! You killed my father! You killed my people!
and then Tulsa Doom, he doesn't even really react to this much. He just says, must have been when I was younger. sort of like M. Bison in the Street Fighter movie. For me, it was Tuesday.
For me, it was Tuesday.
But yeah. And yeah, then he tells him the riddle of the steel, which is that it's nothing compared to those that wield it. And he demonstrates it by ordering a woman to jump off a ledge.
Which she does.
Yeah. You're gonna run out of bad guys at that pace, Tulsa Doom.
And then Doom orders him to be crucified.
Mm-hmm. Another memorable scene.
Yeah.
He starts singing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. Oh, wait a second. Wrong movie. They should have.
Passion.
That would have been so funny, but no. Although what happens is pretty funny. He gets attacked by vultures. And he bites one to death.
Yeah. He's giving some Arnold noises during the scene, too.
Yeah. Again, this is the movie where Arnold became Arnold.
Yeah.
And he's basically just left out there to die before Mako and Valeria find him.
And bring him back to the wizard to heal him.
Yeah, they draw a bunch of marks on his face. I guess to ward off, like, the magic and stuff. So. This is also the point of the notes where I wrote, this is a long movie.
Yeah. It is a very long movie.
It's and I know we've done, like, 2-hour movies on this podcast, but this one, like, there were quite a few scenes that were just long and felt long, so.
Yeah. Can you imagine if that Max Headroom movie was 2 hours?
Oh, God. Even less happens in that movie. And the clouds start looking weird, and Mako freaks out. Some red spirit shows up for a bit, and then disappears almost immediately, so what was the point of that?
So after saving Conan, they decide that they're going to go back and defeat Tulsa, the cult, and bring back the king's daughter.
Yep, they put on some white and black makeup and start sneaking around, which, okay, that doesn't seem like it would be very effective camouflage.
No. It feels like it'd be hard for Arnold to pull off stealth in the first place.
True, yeah, he's like as big as a fucking mountain. And they break into Tulsa Doom's place, and there is an orgy going on.
Because what else would be going on in this movie?
Which, again, I was thinking of Game of Thrones during scenes like
Yeah.
this. And there's like a jaguar/leopard there.
Yeah.
Because why not? You got a good budget for a movie, might as well put some animals in it, too. Make it more exotic. And then we get the other scene, which, when you sent me that text saying this is a strange movie, this was the scene I thought of immediately.
I think I know what you're talking
James
about,
Earl Jones turns into a snake.
You see, I was making supper during this scene.
Did you drop your food when it got to this part?
I didn't, but I looked over and all of a sudden I see a snake wearing James Earl Jones's clothes and I'm like, hold on, I missed something. So I tried to rewind it and I'm like, no, I didn't miss anything. He just turned into a snake, alright.
So yeah, this was the first scene that came to my mind when I read that text, because That and the scene with the witch, obviously, because it also, again, it comes out of nowhere. It also
and then it's
goes
done.
nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just to establish that he's just a freaky guy that can turn into a snake.
Like, the Mario movie, like, you know, when King Koopa turns into the dinosaur at the end, even that had build up. So the earlier scene when he gets, like, briefly, like, de-evolved, it like, shows it. So it goes somewhere. He doesn't just turn into a snake and then it never happens again.
Thinking back to this, I kind of wish there was a scene of Arnold fighting Snake Earl Jones. I guess he already fought a snake earlier in the movie.
It would be a little redundant to have him fight two giant snakes in the movie.
He could have turned into, like, some other animal, like, I don't know, but I guess he's a snake cultist, so... But yeah. He should have used more of his, like, snake powers at the end, though, but... Anyway. And this scene... Oh, man, this scene is really bloody.
Yeah.
There are a lot of throats getting cut and, like, lots of beheadings. It's pretty awesome. It's scenes like this that make me go, you know, maybe this is my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. But
I will admit, a lot of these fight scenes are really good.
I think all the fight scenes are really entertaining.
Yeah.
And then after this whole massacre, Jones, he says,
They shall all drown in lakes of blood. Now they will know why they are afraid of the dark. Now they will learn why they fear the night.
That line could have come off as really silly or over the top, but James Earl Jones...
But it was delivered well.
It's delivered very well. I mean, he's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And then we get another... This was a weird scene I forgot about, where he... Again, him and his snake powers. He turns a snake into an arrow and shoots it at Valeria, which...
Yeah.
That's so absurd, but so awesome at the same time.
I will say, I do like this movie's use of magic. Because it's not there a lot. It's not overused, but it's always interesting when it is used.
It's kind of like, again, with Game of Thrones, where there's magical elements, but it's not like...
It's not focused on the magic.
Yeah, exactly. It's more focused on, like, the setting, characters, and stuff.
Yeah.
And Valeria, she ends up dying from this, because, I mean, you just got shot with a fucking snake. I mean, if you're gonna die in a movie, I mean...
Might as well be by the snake arrow.
It's a pretty painful end, but okay.
This is kind of the opposite of what Moses did when you think about it.
He turns the staff into the snake. He turns a snake into a... I guess, kind of. He does, but he said they will drown in rivers of blood earlier, too. Or lakes.
Oh, yeah.
He says drown in lakes of blood, but rivers of blood, lakes of blood.
Same thing.
Again, it's the whole, like... They're kind of based this on, like, mythology, so I guess, anyway, yeah, that would... Arnold, he's, of course, mad. Sorry, Conan. Have I been calling him Arnold or Conan during this?
You kind of go back and forth.
I feel like most movies Arnold Schwarzenegger's in, I usually just call him Arnold.
Call him Arnold. Because what else are you going to call him, really?
Yeah, I mean, he's usually just playing Arnold, so... He sets up some traps. Basically just smash and impale people at Stonehenge?
Because why not?
Was Stonehenge he at Stonehenge? I was like looking at the rocks and stuff and thinking, that looks a lot like Stonehenge. And then we get another one of my favorite scenes. This might be my favorite line in the movie, actually. Where Arnold, he's praying to his god Crom. And he says,
So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you.
This guy is so badass that he'll basically tell his own god to fuck off. I mean, that's fucking great. And we get another really bloody scene with lots of like axe wounds and impalings because of all the traps that Arnold set up.
Yeah.
Also get this really random part where Arnold sees a vision of Valeria saying, "Do you want to live forever?" It just happens really quick.
Yeah.
It also made me think of a line from Starship Troopers. "All right, you apes, you want to live forever?" And the same composer, Basil Polidorus. So.
Yeah. And this basically leads to a massive battle of Conan against one of the lieutenants of Doom.
That's another thing I like about this movie. There are plenty of sword fights.
And this is a really good sword fight, too. Like, I liked this one. And Conan, well, the lieutenant is wielding the sword that Conan's father forged at the beginning of the movie, which Conan ends up snapping in half with his own sword.
We don't get a huge fight between James Earl Jones and Arnold, but we do get a pretty cool scene.
It is a fantastic scene.
Jones, he has this huge, Tulsa Doom. That's his character
Tulsa
name.
Doom.
He's presiding over a cult service with lots of torches lit, which again, set design and the lighting, oh man, it looks amazing. And Conan shows up and he starts talking about how he's Conan's father, basically giving him this speech saying that he made him into who he is. Sort of like in the 1989 Batman movie when Batman and the Joker meet each other and they're like, yo,
I made you what you are today, basically.
Yeah. Although Arnold didn't really make Tulsa Doom into Tulsa Doom.
Yeah.
Tulsa Doom just does what Tulsa Doom does because he is Tulsa Doom. And Conan thanks him by cutting his head off and throwing it at the crowd.
And it is a fantastic scene. It takes a couple whacks to get his head off.
It is such a brutal beheading scene. There is so much blood, like, just coming out, you know.
And after beheading him and throwing his head down the stairs, he ends up torching the Temple of Set.
And I guess that's just the end of the snake cult?
Yeah. I mean, their leader's been beheaded. That's a pretty strong message, I feel.
Here is Sub-Zero. Now, Plane Zero.
Plane Zero!
Or no, I have to think of a Arnold-type catchphrase involving heads. Heads up. I win. That sounds more like Big Bane than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, yeah, I guess Big Bane is a parody of Arnold's.
Yeah.
In this department, we do things by the book. By book. But anyway. And yeah, he burns the palace. And you get Mako narrating again, saying Conan returned the king's daughter.
Yeah, I felt that was a little weird how it just kind of ends with like a blurb of text.
Super abruptly, yeah. It's like it's basically saying, you know, he had many other adventures.
He eventually became king, and that we'll get to hear this story later.
And you forgot, it also mentions he became governor of California. And that story will also be told, but not in the sequel. He does not become King Conan in the sequel. Okay, so final thoughts.
It's a good movie.
It's an entertaining and well-made movie. You know,
it's got a few pacing issues, especially around the middle.
But it's a good movie. I really enjoy this movie. Mostly just, again, it's a well-made. I think the performances help.
Yeah, definitely.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is definitely a huge part of the movie's appeal. James Earl Jones, obviously. I also think Sandal Bergman, I think she's good in this, too. I think she has good chemistry with Arnold in this. The set design.
The set design is fantastic.
The costumes. We didn't mention the costumes. You know, they're kind of just, you know, When people
Yeah.
think of like generic fantasy stuff, you know, like they're thinking of like, oh, these like not like armor that would actually work, but just really like like tight, revealing like outfits that,
like
like show a
completely
lot of skin,
bare
basically.
chested
On both Arnold
leather.
and on Sandal Bergman, because you got to show Arnold's muscles. You know?
Yeah.
I found out like during the trivia they didn't need a stuntman for him because he's Arnold. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you find a stuntman for Arnold Schwarzenegger? The action scenes are just great. Very entertaining action scenes. Very bloody too.
Yeah.
Again, it was kind of reminding me of Game of Thrones, of like the setting and the level of violence in it. You know, I kind of wish more fantasy stuff would kind of do stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
where it just doesn't flinch on like violence and stuff. Excellent music score. I really love the music score. That's another thing that really helps. Even during like the slow scenes, the music really helps.
Yeah. It all just kind of it comes together so well. So the movie ends up feeling cohesive, even if it is like a bit long, and it still feels like it flows
And a bit episodic
pretty well.
too, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is a little bit too long. There's some parts that I think could have been trimmed.
Yeah.
But let me say it's entertaining, very memorable. It's not my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. That'd probably be Predator or Total Recall. One of those two.
Not The Running Man?
Running Man's good, but it's not. It's not as good as those two. It's not as good as the first two Terminator movies.
Yeah.
Or Commando.
Yeah, Terminator 1.
Commando's pretty amazing.
What is it? True Lies?
True Lies is a good one.
True Lies is fantastic.
I like True Lies. You're fired.
You're fired.
I always forget that Bill Paxton is in that movie.
Yeah.
He fucking like kills him by like punching him in the face, basically. Like breaking his neck. As a James Cameron movie too.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That one kind of gets lost in the shuffle with like other James Cameron movies. I think that's part of it, but it's a good movie.
Yeah,
I like the movie. And no matter the movie, I mean, even if the movie absolutely sucks, Arnold is usually entertaining. So
yeah,
because again, Batman and Robin, we did a podcast on that. It's not a good movie, but I got quite a bit of enjoyment out of Arnold's performance. You know, even if most of it was just the Iceman cometh. Or let's kick some ice.
Ice.
Bad ice puns. And it was also interesting watching this movie again, because it had been a while since I've seen this movie, but I was still remembering a lot of scenes and lines from it. Which I think says a lot about the movie, you know, that it's a memorable movie. I mean, of course, it has some of Arnold's most iconic lines, you know. To crush your enemies, see them driven before you.
And hear the lamentations of their women.
And if you do not listen, then to hell with you. But but again, it's another one of those movies. I mean, I don't know what else to say, really.
Yeah. It is a little bit of a more difficult movie to discuss in that way, I feel.
But it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to watch. It's a good movie. I do know for sure that the sequel does not live up to it. But
oh boy.
I don't remember how bad it is. Who knows? Maybe it's good. It's better than Red Sonja, at least. Are we doing a podcast on Red Sonja, or are we just stopping at Conan the Destroyer?
I think we're just stopping at Conan the Destroyer.
I might still watch Red Sonja anyway, just
for the fun of it.
Okay, so I think we can get to the trivia now. Okay,
Trivia.
This got positive reviews from Siskel and Ebert.
Okay.
Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars,
Fair.
saying the characters were easy to identify with. And Siskel praised the film's sense of humor.
Yeah.
Now, what do you want to guess?
Okay, let's see if I can keep up my streak. I'm feeling solid 3 out of 4 vibes on this one.
Okay, Leonard Maltin gave it 2.5 out of 4 stars.
What?
Although, reading his review, he could have easily given it 3 out of 4 stars because it doesn't really mention much negative in it. So I'm kind of
That is super weird.
confused. Okay, his review, he called it a full-blooded and bloody adventure epic based on Robert E. Howard's pulp tales. Ron Cobb's spectacular production design and Basil Polidorus' vibrant score helped make this superior to the many low-grade imitations it spawned.
Yeah.
But 2.5 out of 4
Yeah, that should have been at least a 3.
lower than
Batman Forever, I know.
Arnold got a Razzie nomination for Worst Actor,
Ooh, that's rough.
which he lost to Laurence Olivier in Inchon.
Huh.
Which is a movie which I will
I
not
don't
be
know if I've
surprised
heard
if
of that
you've
one.
never heard of this movie.
I have never heard of this before.
It's never been released on home video, for one thing.
Oh, wow. That's strange.
The only reason there's copies of it are because it was like shown on TV.
Yeah.
And it's really bad. Like, it's a terrible fucking movie.
Ooh. Budget 46 million, box office 5.2 million. That's 2 hours and 20 minutes?
Although apparently Ronald Reagan really enjoyed it. And like Laurence Olivier, when he was asked about the movie, like why he did it, he said, "Money, dear boy." But come on, I mean, Arnold. You nominated Arnold for a Razzie for this movie?
I didn't think he was that bad.
I mean, who else are you gonna cast as Conan the Barbarian? Like, who else would have really fit into that role? I mean,
Yeah.
they probably would have nominated Johnny Weissmuller for a Razzie, though, for playing Tarzan, but anyway. Sandal Bergman, on the other hand, won a Golden Globe for Best New Star of the Year.
Huh.
Although her career didn't really go anywhere after this.
That's a little disappointing.
She's in Red Sonja, though. I was like looking at her filmography.
Huh.
I noticed she's in this and Red Sonja. And I think she plays the villain in Red Sonja.
Huh. That's a bit of a different role than in this movie.
Yeah. And both have Arnold in them. A funny story about Red Sonja. Apparently Arnold said it was the worst movie he ever did.
Really?
And to punish his kids, he would threaten to show them Red Sonja 10 times in a row.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And they said, so I've never had any trouble from them. Yeah. Conan was nominated for the AFI list 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains, but didn't make the list.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Other Arnold characters did make the list, though, so there's that. Like, he's on both the Villains and Heroes list, actually, because the Terminator from the first movie is on the Villains list, and the Terminator from the second movie is on the Heroes list.
That's pretty funny, actually.
That more than makes up for it. Other lists this movie was considered for were 100 Years of Film Scores.
Did it not get on if it was only nominated?
No, it didn't make it.
Oh, that's disappointing.
And Top 10 Fantasy Films, which it didn't make that one either. And then later there was a remake of this, which starred Jason Momoa.
Oh, wow.
Which is not a good movie, but it does have Jason Momoa sword fighting, so it does earn points in my book.
Yeah, it's got that, I guess.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was in this movie.
Really?
He was also in the You didn't know Arnold was in Conan the Barbarian, really?
No, I did not. That's news to me. I was surprised to see his name in the opening credits.
It's only like his second or third most famous role. But yeah, Arnold was in this movie. He was also in the Expendables movies, which co-starred Dolph Lundgren, who was in...
Masters of the Universe.
Yep, Masters of the Universe. Oliver Stone envisioned 12 Conan movies.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of movies.
Apparently, he was like, he wanted this to be like a huge film series like the James Bond movies.
Oh.
And he wanted Arnold to be in all of them.
That's more sequels than Avatar.
Avatar. Stone's original script for Conan was compared to Dante's Inferno.
Really?
And had armies of mutants.
Huh.
He also wanted to direct. Other directors that were considered were John Frankenheimer,
Okay.
director of The Manchurian Candidate. Yeah, I don't know how that would have changed things.
Yeah.
Sam Peckinpah.
Who?
I've mentioned him on the podcast before. He's like known for doing like really violent westerns, like The Wild Bun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Straw
this probably would
Dogs.
have been a bit more gory
He did
if he
Straw
was in
Dog.
charge then.
Yeah, maybe. Because his movies were really pushing the envelope in terms of violence at the time.
Hmm.
Alan Parker, which is the same year he did Pink Floyd The Wall.
Oh, wow.
And he also directed Midnight Express, which was another movie Oliver Stone helped write.
Huh.
I feel like if that would have happened, it would have been a more serious movie.
Probably,
Would have been
yeah. Just looking at some of his other works
Mississippi Burning.
here.
Another great movie that, well, we won't be doing a podcast on just because pretty heavy subject matter in that movie. Any movie that has like the KKK in it is like, I mean, you know, things are gonna get fucked up. And Ridley Scott, he was considered.
That would have been interesting. I feel like that would have been more serious as well.
He was doing, this is the same year Blade Runner came out, so he was probably busy with Blade Runner at the time. John Milius had wanted to do a Viking movie.
And this isn't quite a Viking movie.
But it has some Viking elements. I mean, they mentioned Valhalla in it.
Yeah.
Which that's why he was interested in the movie. When he was a surfer, his nickname was Viking, since he owned a sword. And he also saw a lot of himself in Conan. I don't know what parts of him were and weren't Conan, but okay. So who knows, maybe John Milius's parents were brutally murdered by James Earl Jones. And one thing I found funny while I was watching a making of documentary on the movie,
Yeah.
is that they showed a picture of Arnold smoking a cigar while in costume as Conan.
Oh, that would have looked weird.
Because, I mean, I know Arnold smokes cigars, but it's just funny seeing him doing that while in costumes. Apparently, Sterling Hayden was considered for King Osric.
Huh.
Which he played General Ripper in Doctor Strangelove.
Huh.
Which that would have reunited him with James Earl Jones, because James Earl Jones is also in Doctor Strangelove.
Oh, I forgot about that too. I always forget what movies James Earl Jones is in.
You do remember that he's in Star Wars, right?
Really? No, I forgot.
Oh, fuck me. Well, I'm not going to
Okay,
refresh your
this is
memory
gonna
on Star
sound.
Wars too much, but he might be related to a main character.
I'm gonna admit something. I just opened up his Wikipedia page and I very nearly said I forgot he was in Lion King.
Yep, he's Mufasa in Lion King.
Yeah. He was in Exorcist too?
Yes. Oh my god, that movie is fucking weird. It's such a bad sequel too. It's like, and what's weird with that movie is they got a director who didn't even like the first movie to direct it. Like, what better way to sabotage a sequel? But yeah, James Earl Jones, he's in that. He wears a locust costume for some reason. But, oh, that's a weird fucking movie. Thanks for reminding me of that fever dream.
You're welcome.
Which Max von Sydow is in Exorcist and Exorcist 2, so again, there's some overlap. Does this mean we're gonna do a podcast on The Exorcist since you haven't seen it? Oh my god. I'm not really in a rush to rewatch those, to be fair, because I rewatched them like a year ago, I think. The only good one's the first ones. Max von Sydow accepted the role of King Osric, partly because his son loved the Conan comic books, but also because it was a very theatrical role.
Huh.
Because if you watch a lot of his movies before this, he was used to doing more subdued roles. Like, they weren't as, like, over the top, you know?
Yeah.
Like, even in Flash Gordon, he's still taking the movie pretty seriously. He doesn't, like, go full on, like, over the top, you know?
That is kind of interesting.
Because you're like, you watch this and you're like, this guy was in movies of Ingmar Bergman? Wow. It's just some dissonance there. In a deleted scene, King Osric was killed by his bodyguards.
Oh.
And apparently it was so overly bloody that it ended up getting cut because it was unintentionally hilarious.
I kind of want to watch that scene now.
It's in the... I only know about it because it's in the making of documentary. But I don't... maybe it's on YouTube. John Milius had a cameo, which was cut, where he was a guy handing out a food called Lizard on a Stick.
I swear there's another movie that has Lizard on the Stick, and now I'm going to think about that until I die.
But I think this was around the scene where Conan's, like, in the village with,
Yeah, that would make sense.
whatever the other guy's name was. But they cut it because they felt it didn't really fit into the movie. The giant wheel that Conan pushes was so easy to push that when Arnold first pushed it, the spoke behind him hit the back of his head. Another tidbit from the documentary I thought was funny. There were also lots of injuries on the set.
I could see why.
Sandahl Bergman cut her index finger in a fight. And Arnold got badly hurt during the filming of the cave scenes. John Milius told Arnold, "Pain is only momentary, but the film is eternal." So much empathy. James Earl Jones had grown up on a farm with a lot of snakes, so he already had experience dealing with snakes.
Huh.
Apparently too much experience, since the snakes ended up being too relaxed around him and wouldn't move much. Ennio Morricone was considered to score the movie.
That probably would have been pretty good.
Which he did do the score for Red Sonja, actually.
Oh, really?
Yep. He didn't do the score for this or Conan the Destroyer, but he did do the score for Red Sonja. Just like Conan Light, basically. That also has Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, but he's not playing Conan. His name is like Calidor or something. Ouch.
Diet Conan.
Diet Conan? I called it Conan Live, but yeah, Diet Conan. The next one's kind of Diet Conan because it's PG instead of R.
Oh, really? Not even PG-13?
It's PG.
Wow.
I think it came out before PG-13.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Wasn't Temple of Doom the first PG-13 movie?
No. Red Dawn was. Another John
Oh,
Williams
really?
movie. But Temple of Doom was one of the movies that resulted in the creation of the PG-13 rating.
Ah, okay.
Because, I mean, yeah, you watch it and you're like, a guy gets his heart ripped out. And there's like, but yeah, I think Conan the Destroyer came out before the PG-13 rating. Because it came out in June of 1984, and Red Dawn came out in August. Yep. 2 months. Missed it by 2 months.
Wow.
And Temple of Doom also came out in 1984. Apparently, so many people showed up to the premiere of this movie that they had to open up 2 more theaters to fit the demand.
Wow.
People really wanted to see a Conan movie, apparently.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know how popular the Conan books and things were back then.
Or it could have just been marketing, too. Maybe it was well marketed. Arnold was originally supposed to narrate, but executives didn't want him to because of his accent.
That's a bit disappointing.
Would have made more sense, though, wouldn't it?
It would have, instead of just this random wizard.
Although, I guess you do get Arnold narrating the movie if you listen to the DVD commentary. Because I don't know if you've ever listened to, like, clips of Arnold doing DVD commentaries, but basically what he does is he recaps what's going on the screen while it's happening, but he's, like, saying it like it's happening to him.
That's bizarre. That is bizarre.
It's so funny, though, if you ever, like... And the DVD commentary of this movie has both him and John Milius, so... But, like, I remember there was, like, one comment he said, it was like, you know, during the opening credits, when they're showing the sword, he says, yes, this movie is about the sword. The whole thing is about that sword. Yeah. His commentary for Total Recall, I've heard, like, snippets of that, and it's pretty funny, too. It's like, you're just wondering, like, what? Is he, like, narrating the movie just in case there's any blind people watching it? I guess you gotta make it entertaining for them as well, so... Dino De Laurentiis did not want Arnold for the role.
Really?
And supposedly jumped up onto his desk at the suggestion. John Milius then jokingly said, okay, not Arnold. How about we get Dustin Hoffman instead? Which also made Dino mad, and finally he agreed to have Arnold be in the movie.
That's pretty good.
Milius described his meetings with Dino by saying, Conan had to spend time on the wheel, and I had to spend time with Dino. I guess the feeling was mutual. John Milius wanted to make a trilogy of Conan films, each focused on different themes involving the sword. The first one, this one, focused on the strength of the sword. The second one was supposed to focus on how to wield the sword, and the third was going to focus on the consequences of wielding the sword.
Huh.
But that didn't happen.
So, from what it sounds like, I would imagine that the third movie is when he would have become king.
Probably, yeah, and then he just, like... It just turns into that SpongeBob episode where Patrick gets a crown and then starts being an asshole to everybody. At one point, John Milius wanted to make a movie about Alexander the Great, starring, drumroll, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I'm not too sure how to feel about that.
Wait, how close is Belgium to Macedonia?
Not very close at all.
Or what about Alexander the Great, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger?
That one would have been a little weird, too. Because I feel like none of them really look like Alexander the Great.
Not really, no. There hasn't really been a good movie about Alexander the Great. Like, there was one with Richard Burton, which wasn't that good, and then there was that Oliver Stone one with Colin Farrell, who was just horribly miscast in that movie. That's one of those movies, like, that you're just, like, going, this should have worked. You have all these people in the cast and these people behind the camera, and yet it doesn't work at all.
You somehow found a way to mess it up.
Yeah. One thing about that movie, I will say, though, the music score is fantastic. Because the music score was done by Vangelis. He did the music for Blade Runner and Chariots of Fire. It's a great music score.
Okay.
So he was the best part of the movie. Rest in peace. So Oliver Stone got to do an Alexander the Great movie, but John Milius didn't.
Yeah.
When Arnold campaigned for George H.W. Bush in 1988, he got the nickname Conan the Republican. This also became one of the many nicknames he had when he became governor of California later on. The most famous of which being the Governator, of course.
Yeah.
I bet when he was, like, running for re-election, his campaign slogan was, "I'll be back." But yeah. Sylvester Stallone and Charles Bronson turned down the role of Conan.
Bronson would have been interesting.
He would have had to bulk up a little bit more to be Arnold's size.
Yeah.
I wonder if he would have still had the mustache.
That's a good question.
He was pretty old by that point, though. Wait.
Yeah.
He was in his 60s.
Old Conan.
Yeah. I guess they could have done the one where he's become the king and stuff. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone, let's see. I'm trying to imagine that. I feel like that could have worked, actually.
It would have been a very different movie, I feel.
Yeah. Hey, yo, Adrian, I gotta go slice this guy's head off. Would he have talked more or less than Arnold in the movie? That's probably more, just because he could speak better English than Arnold at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like Arnold fits the role better, though.
Yeah, Arnold was like the perfect choice for this movie.
He was, yeah. I mean, I can't really think of anybody else at the time who would have done it, but I mean, Stallone makes sense. I can see why he would have been considered. And Charles Bronson, aside from being a little too old, I can see why they would have brought him up. James Earl Jones was a last-minute addition to the cast because of his commitments on Broadway.
Huh.
He and Arnold Schwarzenegger became friends on set. Schwarzenegger helped Jones stay in shape, and Jones coached Schwarzenegger on acting, as did Max von Sydow.
That's a pretty interesting relationship there, then.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sandahl Bergman did their own stunts, as suitable body doubles couldn't be found.
You know, fair. Like, who are they going to get to be a body double for Schwarzenegger?
Exactly. I mean, Lou Ferrigno, maybe. Schwarzenegger had weapons training, martial arts training, and horseback riding lessons from specialists. Makes sense. He trained with an 11-pound broadsword 2 hours a day for 3 months. Each broadsword cost $10,000 and had to look weathered.
Dang.
He also learned climbing techniques and how to fall and roll and jump from 15 feet in the air. Jesus Christ.
That's impressive.
John Milius made sure all of these were videotaped, and according to Schwarzenegger, they were just as intense as training for bodybuilding competitions. So those bodybuilding competitions are very intense. I don't know if you've seen like pumping iron and stuff, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I've seen bits of it.
Yeah. Not just the clip where Arnold is talking about like
Yeah.
doing marijuana or having sex. But anyway. Arnold Schwarzenegger kept the snake dagger as a memento.
Huh.
According to his autobiography, he gave it to his nephew. That was nice of him. Arnold Schwarzenegger calls the movie God's gift to his career. I guess Crom gave him a career. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you. Thankfully, he listened. In an interview, John Milius said that the dogs they used in the film, during the beginning, the village stuff, were very unfriendly and dangerous.
So does that mean that Arnold was actually running from these dogs in that scene?
There's a quote. Milius even went as far to say, when you had the dogs chasing Arnold Schwarzenegger and he's running, he's actually running for his life because he knew those dogs were very dangerous and they even attacked their trainer. So apparently, yes. Arnold Schwarzenegger had retired from professional bodybuilding after winning the 1975 Mr. Olympia contest. He got back into such good shape while training for his role in Conan the Barbarian that he decided to enter the 1980 Mr. Olympia contest.
Wow.
He won the contest, although there was a great deal of controversy about whether he deserved the victory. I guess that was the 8th time he won Mr. Olympia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you only won Mr. Olympia 7 times. Real arrows were shot into the snake, right over Arnold Schwarzenegger's head.
Wow.
John Milius shot them himself after it was determined he was the best archer in the crew.
Wow.
So I guess he not only really likes guns, he also really likes archery. Arnold Schwarzenegger was entitled to 5% of the film's profits.
Ooh.
The fake blood used in the film came in the form of a concentrate, which had to be mixed with water prior to use. Due to the cold weather, it was mixed with vodka as an antifreeze instead. In the scenes in which the actors were supposed to spit the blood, they would swallow it instead, then go back to the special effects man for more.
That's pretty good.
Getting drunk on vodka while filming Conan. Oh, okay, this is interesting. Although the Hyborian age of Conan was approximately 10,000 BC, creator Robert E. Howard used medieval themes and influences in the Conan stories to avoid any complicated historical research. Oliver Stone's script placed the story in a post-apocalyptic future rather than the distant past.
That would have been interesting. That would have felt more like probably Fist of the North Star then.
Something. This was abandoned and the original timeline was restored. I guess that's why there were mutants and stuff, because...
Yeah.
The dynamic score by Basil Polidoris has been frequently used by other filmmakers as temp tracks in other films.
That's a good one to pick.
It has also been frequently used in advanced trailers and TV spots for other films.
Huh.
And also kind of was the theme for Total Recall. When Oliver Stone wrote the script, he made Arnold Schwarzenegger read comics and fantasy novels to see how he handled period dialogue. Stone set the story in the future after the downfall of civilization. It was set to be a 4-hour saga and had a whole host of creatures. It would have cost the production $70 million to pull that off, so they refused.
So it would have cost the same amount that it made at the box office.
Yeah. John Milius wound up rewriting much of Stone's script, which cut the budget by more than half, and also called for a change in location. He wanted the fantasy accurate in every detail. And Arnold Schwarzenegger apparently modeled his performance as Conan after Steve Reeves and his performances as Hercules.
Huh.
Not the Lou Ferrigno Hercules movie that came out the year after this. Gosh. Oh, that movie's absurd. Can you think of any other movie where Hercules picks up a bear and throws it into space? I'm not
really,
kidding.
no.
That happens in that movie.
Huh.
It was a Canon film, too, actually. Canon made that. The fuck? Okay. At around 24 minutes, Conan's response to the Mongol general is an abbreviation of a real quote attributed to Genghis Khan.
Huh.
The greatest pleasure is to vanquish your enemies and chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, and see those dear to them bathed in tears, to ride their horses and clasp to your bosom their wives and daughters. The fact that Conan is not only chaste, but to some great extent orphaned by dogs, also recalls Genghis Khan's well-documented fear of that particular animal. Finally, the writer's preoccupation with steel seems oddly coincidental, given that Genghis Khan's birth name, Temujin, is frequently translated as finest steel.
Huh. Alright, we should probably...
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to top... Hey, everybody. Genghis Khan. So next time we're doing The Conqueror, the only movie where Genghis Khan is played by John Wayne. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're doing a Conan the Destroyer.
That's such a weird idea for a movie, The Conqueror.
Yeah, casting John Wayne as Genghis Khan.
It
was also produced by Howard Hughes and directed by Dick Powell.
Wow.
Very weird collaboration going on there.
Anyway, next time we'll pick it up with the sequel to Conan.
Conan the Destroyer. But not Red Sonja. We're not doing Red Sonja, apparently.
In that case, roll the Andy Griffith.
Roll the Andy Griffith clip, yep.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.